At first I was like, okay, and then I hated it, and then I was like, well, maybe if I try to look at it from this perspective. I think that was just a huge missed opportunity in this book. I don't understand. It's not at all. There's a certain expectation there that I didn't like it. And no, I didn't. Hello and welcome to the Ellen Made Book Club. Today we have a book club discussion about The Power by Naomi Alderman. This video may contain spoilers. I'm kind of assuming that you have read the book if you're watching this video. If you haven't, you're welcome to do so and come back later, or just don't read it at all. No, just stay for the rant that is about to come. And yeah, fair warning. The basic premise for this book is that teenage girls get electrocuting powers, and that causes some shifts in the power dynamics in the world. And we get to follow a few different characters, one teenage girl in America and one in the UK. And then there's also a politician, and then there's a young journalist. I have had a few questions that I will answer in this video, and I'm also going to be discussing a couple of different perspectives that you could have while reading this book and what I think of those perspectives. So the first question I'm just carrying over from previous discussion videos, and that is from Emily at the Linguist's Library. She wants to know what made someone gravitate toward a specific book. And I think that question is particularly relevant in this case because my expectations and hopes for this book play a big role in how I read it and how I experienced it and how much I enjoyed it or didn't. So what made me gravitate toward this book was the feminist perspective and to explore what a world would look like if women had this kind of power. I thought that it was going to be this like imagined utopia where women have power and then sort of moral dilemmas that come from that and issues that arise. I wanted to see what the effects would be from this shift in power dynamic. I wanted to see what that would look like in the workplace or in a boardroom, decision making, in like law and order, crime and punishment, like political policy. I wanted to see how it would affect war and peace negotiations, how poverty would be affected, and like debate about climate change. I wanted to see the effects on gender roles in a domestic setting, childcare, like all kinds of aspects of life and like what that would look like. So I wanted it to explore the positive changes that I would imagine would come from this. And then there also has to be like some conflict for it to be an interesting story, like the moral dilemmas that would arise. Let's say we're talking about he said, she said kind of scenarios, and we decide that we're just gonna go with she said. And so, okay, that sounds good from a female perspective, but okay, what would that lead to and how would we sort of deal with the consequences of that? That's a very specific example, but I think it gives you an idea of what I had expected from this book. And if it wasn't going to be that, I would at least want it to be these like kick-ass superhero women who could just finally do whatever they wanted without the limitations that men put on women, and like without having to be afraid of men and without having the expectations and judgments from men. Like I would like to see women just living their life the way they would want to. This book was neither of those things, and I think this book can be read from different perspectives, and I think that in itself is well done, and I think it takes a lot of skill to be able to do that. And I'm very aware that my expectations of this book shaped my experience and enjoyment reading it, but I also sort of shifted my perspective about halfway through, or like somewhere along the way, and sort of tried to read it from several different perspectives at the same time to just like kind of try to find where this would fit in my mind. Like how would I read this in a way that would make this good? But however I chose to read it, it still like didn't work for me. So I'll try to explain to you the different perspectives that I see and what I think of them. The first way to read it is as a feminist utopia, which was kind of my expectations of it, but it actually turned out to be a utopia where women have all the power and we finally get revenge on men. And so if you are a man-hating radical kind of a feminist, you would probably love this book and like finally get to see things being done to men that men have been doing to women for all of time, basically. That's not the kind of feminist that I am, so for me this is not a utopia at all. I don't think that rape is better because a man is the victim. I don't think that war is better because women are fighting it. I don't think that violence and drug abuse is better because women are in control of it. I don't want men to do those things either, but like the act isn't better because a woman is doing it. So if I'm reading this from that perspective, that this is a feminist utopia, I absolutely hate this book with a passion. And I actually think that it's kind of dangerous to read it with that perspective because I see this more as an argument against female empowerment. If I read it from that perspective, like this only shows what a terrible world it would be if women had that kind of power. If someone who wants to keep women down were to read this book and think that this is what women actually want, they would want to keep women down even more. I don't know why that kind of person would ever pick this book up, but that's another question. The second perspective I see is that this is just an illustration of what men are doing to women, but just with the roles flipped so that women are doing it to men. From that perspective, I think that this book does a decent job of illustrating the horrors of that, and I think that it seems even more horrible when women are doing it, just based on the expectations that I have on women and that I think that most people have. Reading about a woman raping a man, for example, was absolutely horrible, and it made me sick to my stomach, and that's how it should feel, and that's how it should feel hearing about a man raping a woman as well. And I mean, it does, but I also think that we're desensitized to that because it's so common, like it doesn't even make the news. Reading about a woman doing it is just a shock to the system a little bit, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's good to have that shock and be reminded of how horrible it is and just make you think a little bit about that. And yeah, so for me, that's one of the redeeming qualities of this book. I still didn't like it. I don't need it, and I don't know who does. Like, I don't know who this book is for. Like, it could be for a radical feminist, like I said, who just wants to have revenge on men, or it could be for a person who has no concept of inequality at all and is just like, what are these feminists yapping about? So maybe this could be helpful to see what we mean by flipping the roles and seeing it from a different perspective. And like, imagine if this was being done to men, how would you feel about that? Maybe this book has some insights for you. Like, if you have no empathy or understanding for women at all, and you don't think that we have it that bad, and you only have empathy for men, and so you need to read a book like this to understand what we're talking about, then sure, maybe you will understand women a little bit better. That being said, I don't think that that kind of person would ever pick this book up. So again, who is this book for? The third way of looking at it, as I see it, is that this is not about gender at all. It's just about power and how power corrupts whoever is in power, and that this whole like gender flip is just a way to make it more clear and like make it about power as the main character instead of like men in power, which is already the norm, so it wouldn't be as obvious, maybe. And so if I'm reading it from that perspective, I think it's boring and, again, harmful, and it doesn't provide me with anything. If you have a different perspective from these and you would like to share in the comments, I would love to hear it. Maybe I'm missing something and I'm reading it from completely the wrong perspective. I would love to hear what you think. But I also think that if this is such a brilliant book and it has such a powerful perspective, it should be crystal clear what that perspective is. And like, if you have a good idea, don't hide it behind some gross story. Like, just make me understand it, even if I'm stupid, please. And if it's not supposed to be read from any perspective at all and just be like a fun science fiction-y kind of book, it wasn't fun and I hate it. And yeah. Before we get into your questions, I have a section that I would like to call annoying things that didn't make sense to me. The first one is the men have guns. Like, the women have electrocuting powers, but the men still have guns. And electricity can't compete with that. So, okay, so do women have power or not? And why don't they just also get guns then? Or they could use their electrocuting powers to destroy all guns, destroy all ammunition everywhere. Like, just do something about it. There's also this religion aspect where it's like Mother God and this like woman, teenage girl, prophet kind of person. And no, I didn't like any of that. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. This is the Swedish translation, so I'm not sure if it's the same on the English one. But like in the very beginning, like on the first line, it mentions a Nigerian daughter, girl, woman, individual, human being who is just a daughter. She's not even a part of the story at all. It doesn't follow her. The person we're following is the Nigerian boy who is with this Nigerian girl. And he is the journalist in this story who is going around and reporting on all of these like changes. Like, the fact that it said that made me think that this was going to be women all over the world. We're going to have someone in Nigeria and like someone in America and someone in an orphanage and someone like, I thought that it was going to be a little bit more of a global event and like women from all over the world and how this power dynamic was changing in different countries. And like, it's not at all. It's all in the US or in the UK, Europe, and then one boy from Nigeria. There are so many things that could happen from this change, and we're still just focusing on like some local politician in the US. Like, give me something more. Obviously, it doesn't have an obligation to take the whole world into account, and like not all stories have to include every single country. I just think that in a story like this, there was so much potential to do that, and it's also like hinting at it on the back. And so that was an expectation that I had. And like, I was thinking of The Measure by Nikki Erlick, where there's also this like little event that changes everything. And that only takes place in the US. But I think because it only takes place in the US, it doesn't pretend to be anything other than focusing on the US. I had expected this to take more of the world into account because it had so much potential to do that. The next thing is something that I think was mentioned at the very end about how, you know, people would have the same expectations that I did before picking this up. That, you know, if women ruled the world, it would be different in so-and-so ways because we are more caring and nurturing and like softer, warmer, all of that. And then the argument against that was that that's just, you know, from socialization, that's just because of the patriarchy and like how the world has been for the last 5,000 years. And so we're just made to think that we are that way. And that's not true. Women are warriors and women are the same as men basically, but we've just been put in this like childcare role. And so we think that we're more caring. First of all, if that's the case, do you think that that just disappears overnight? Like, if we've had 5,000 years of that kind of thinking and we're so convinced that that's how we are as women, generally speaking, would that just disappear just because it was just in our heads. Like that doesn't just go away. And all of that history is also still there. All of that still happened. And so all of the knowledge that we have now from all of that history, we all have the same understanding of how history played out and what has happened and how people have treated each other. And so that wouldn't disappear overnight either. And so even if, let's say, women are not more caring, we still would have that knowledge of, okay, but this is how the world turned out when men who are the less caring kind of people got to decide. And so that's what that led to. And so are we going to just make the same mistakes again? Like, wouldn't we be a little bit smarter than that? I think it's insulting to say that women would do the exact same thing that men have been doing always the second we got some kind of superpower. I think that's ridiculous. And then the other part of that is also the idea that being caring and being nurturing and being warm and soft and all of those things is somehow a weakness. And that's, just something that we should not even look at. And that's just like, that was just a side effect from the patriarchy. I happen to see that as a very big strength. I think that the author missed an opportunity to use that as the superpower, or like have that be a factor in the decision making that women suddenly had all this control over. Even if some women snapped into this like warrior mode, there's this like judgment that would somehow be better, which first of all is annoying me, but also the assumption that would work the same for all women, as if there aren't different kinds of women. Like some might be leaning more toward the warrior kind of personality, but that doesn't mean that a lot of women wouldn't still be in the caring mentality. Okay. And also, like, is there anything scarier than a mama bear? Like, is there anything that you avoid more in the wilderness than a mother animal with her children? Like, that's the most dangerous kind of animal that you can come across in the woods. The caring and the nurturing is not a weakness as I see it. That's the superpower that gives so many women purpose and strength, and it's a superpower. So I think that was just a huge missed opportunity in this book, and to like just wave that off as a weakness that was just a side effect of the patriarchy. I don't see how that is a feminist perspective. So that's my take on that. Then I had a question from Chelsea at Libraries and Lattes, and she asks, did you enjoy the writing style and format of The Power? If not, why not? I love that she didn't say why or why not. It's like, if not, why not? There's a certain expectation there that I didn't like it. And no, I didn't. I didn't like the writing style. I thought that it was very choppy. It had short sentences. I didn't like the voice of it. I didn't like the voices of the different characters. I didn't think that they were like specific enough to the different characters, and they also weren't consistent. Like I mentioned in my wrap up that, a teenage girl would sound like a teenage girl one minute, and then the next she would say something that a teenage girl would never say because it was so outdated. Again, I read the Swedish translation, so I can't speak for the English language, but this was nothing that impressed me in any kind of way. And then there's the format of these like letters at the start and at the end of the book, where it's like giving the impression that this book was written by a man, but it was sent to a woman to publish it under her name, or like something along those lines, because who would take a man seriously? Again, the role reversal, and it annoyed me so much, and I didn't like it, and I thought it was very like gimmicky, and it was used to give a commentary on the book itself, but I didn't think that it did that very well either. And then there's also these like archaeological finds, these like little drawings, and I don't like that either. I don't understand. And then Helen asked your favorite character in the book and the one question you'd like to ask them. I don't think that there was one character that I liked in this book, and I couldn't care less what they have to say. The only character who's trying to do something good is the journalist, who in this gender flip is a man, and so I guess he would represent a woman, so of course I'm gonna be on his/her side. I don't know, but like I don't think that there's anything that I could ask him that I couldn't ask any woman in the world already. Like I don't know what new insight he would bring to anything. I guess I would ask, what the hell are you all doing? I'm very disappointed in you. Please use this power better. But that's not really a question. If you have read this book and you have similar thoughts or different thoughts, I would love to hear what they are. I haven't looked on any other like reviews of this. I just like to record my own thoughts before I do that. I would be very interested to hear what someone who liked this book thought or thinks, or if, you know, it has shifted, because for me it has definitely shifted over time. At first I was like, okay, and then I hated it, and then I was like, well, maybe if I try to look at it from this perspective, I might find something good in it. The only good thing I could find was like, yeah, it's an illustration of how horrible men treat women. But like, that's not news to me. So please share your thoughts in the comments if you have any, or if you just enjoyed watching me rant about this book, or if you think I said something stupid. I don't know. Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, other than that, I hope you're having a fantastic day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.